what would you do if your freedom is on the line? Do you lay low and hope for the best? Do you let the strong and sadistic rule over your lives? Regardless of your answer, today we're reviewing F.I.S.T, Thor's, and Shadow Torch. I don't know what the title means, but it sounds like it involves punching people.
So this game was developed and published by TiGames, a company based in Shanghai, China. Now I couldn't find too much information on the company itself, so I'm pretty sure this is their first major game that's putting them on the map. Alright, so the very first thing I noticed was a presentation. Now, it wasn't the beautifully rendered graphics that catch your eye, but more the top quality voice acting you hear as soon as you start a new game. I mean, I know that's not a big deal in today's age, but a lot of indie titles don't go that far in storytelling. They reserve the voice acting more for the beginning and the ending of the game, but here it's a lot more consistent. And the cutscenes are nothing to scoff at either, showing off impressively fluid animations, which I think is at 60 FPS. It honestly felt like I was watching a movie at times.
Iron dogs are here again. I'll hold them off. You warn the villagers.
Ha! Look, it's a Fertisan rabbit, not an iron dog.
Halt! Say the secret word or go back from where you came. You can't just waltz into the Western Range.
Hey, didn't you used to serve under Bovey?
I need to see Bovey regarding an important matter.
Well, please, come on in. If you want to see Bovey, head west until you see a house with an iron bull on the front. That's his place.
Why did you just let him through with no questions asked?
He's from before your time, kid. That was one of the leading champions of the Resistance, Raiden. He was Bovey's trusted warrior and won many battles.
Alright, so the game looks great, that's awesome. But what are we dealing with exactly? How well does the game play? And I gotta be honest with you, the character controls very smoothly when exploring the game. Though he feels kinda heavy in the beginning, which I guess kinda makes sense when you're carrying around a giant metal fist. But I know there's no way in hell I could do that. I spoke about how well everything looks, but I think that came at a cost, because occasionally the frame rate would just dip down to like 12 frames per second. Luckily, it wasn't often, only occurring when it's loading up the next area or when you're about to trigger a cutscene. Thank God it never happened during combat or during the cutscenes while they played. Otherwise, the game would be completely unplayable. So I played this on the PS4, and I'm not sure if the PS5 had the same issue. I sure hope not. The combat is pretty satisfying too, with fluid and responsive control when fighting your enemies. I gotta be honest, watching early gameplay footage, I didn't really get much of an impression at first about swinging a giant metal fist, but then that's a big difference between watching a game and playing it for yourself. Not once did I ever feel like I was mindlessly button mashing until the enemy decided they had enough. Every enemy fought as though they each had their own strengths and weaknesses that I could exploit to make the journey easier for myself. Even when I got dogpiled, which was a lot by the way, I could always gain the upper hand if I was just careful enough. The boss fights themselves are the true test of the game, often challenging your platform skills as well as your combat ability. The first 1 or 2 boss encounters aren't too bad, just your basic dodge and attack gimmick. But later on in the game, during these fights, you'll find yourself bouncing off walls, dodging laser beams, traps, and hordes of enemies, and all other types of flippy shit trying to find an opening just to attack. And you're going to lose a few of them on your first try, because they're out for blood, and they don't care how cute and cuddly you look. The game isn't like... but more like...
Get him up, let him get up, let him get up, let him get up.
But when you lay down that final smackdown on that tougher than normal boss with an execution, the victory is all the more satisfying. And that's a great part of the game. It's not overly punishing that it makes you rage quit, but just enough to call you out and challenge everything you learned so far. So when you lose a boss fight, it respawns you close by where the boss area is in the next room, instead of making you travel through several areas and enemies for another round. See, Level design like that is very considerate for the gamer who just got their ass kicked for the 5th time. The main character, Raiden, looks like someone straight out of a Marvel's movie. I mean, really, if you told me him and Rocket Raccoon hang out together at the bar, I'd totally believe it. In my last review, Ariada's Spirits, I criticized the game for its lack of good characterization with the people you meet. But here, you can tell there was more thought put into these characters, starting with Raiden, a total badass with a no-nonsense attitude, who starts the game off trying to rescue his friend Urso from the Legion, a corrupted government that seized control over their home, Torch City. Because he was so one-track minded and always straight to the point, I initially thought Raiden was going to be one of those really boring protagonists who just do good things because they're quote-unquote the good guy and destined to bring justice to those who are weak. But no, that's far from it. In fact, the game literally starts off with him trying to keep a low profile, eat some noodles, and then head home. And shit, man, I can relate. The man is trying to just enjoy a simple life, but then his friend gets kidnapped. That's a great way to start the adventure. But it doesn't feel like Raiden was forced into the plot, because the more you play, the more backstory you get. And without spoiling too much for you, it starts to get real personal for the guy when he learns that the leader of the Legion is an old war buddy of his, who he thought died. Revelations like this kept the plot engaging throughout the entire game. That alone made me want to keep going, just to see how it all ends for these characters. And they all look like they've seen better days. I mean, they try to live their lives the best way they can, but it's clear that every day is a constant struggle for them. And I gotta say, I like how the side characters are presented in this game. You're not given a lot on their backstories, but just enough to make them relevant within the overall plot. It's like everyone plays a small part instead of them being forced into the story and then quickly forgotten. You see, that's how you implement good characterization into a video game. But let's not pretend like every part of the game was a great time, because there were a few times I wanted to scream in frustration, especially during that stealth section when you have to break out of prison and find your weapon. You see, you're spending your time avoiding cameras and sneaking past enemies. And you know, there's nothing wrong with gameplay variety, but it drags on a bit too long. But that really isn't the game's fault, because I'm not really a stealth kind of guy. I mean, I prefer the punching in your face part. But here, I feel as useless as Link without his master sword. And really, that's never a fun time.
You think you can defeat me, Link? Let's see what you got. Have at you! Ha ha!
But there is one section that can burn in hell. Later on in the game, you explore this area called the Ancient Complex to find this extremely dangerous, super powerful power source called the Spark. This is the most bullshit part of the game, because you spend your time looking for keys to open doors and activate elevators while trying to avoid enemy attacks. And you might say, well, Deuce, just kill the enemies and then grab the keys. It's not that hard. And you know what? I would say you're right. If the damn keys didn't revive the enemies I just killed, that's right. The keys bring them back to life when passing by them. Every single time. And because that wasn't enough, they can destroy the keys, which means you have to run all the way back to a spawn point to grab another one, run past the enemies, and pray to baby Jesus they don't destroy it again. And if you get past the enemies, you gotta worry about the elevators, because when you place the keys on them, you have to run around turning off nearby fire hazards so the elevator can pass unharmed. Otherwise, the key catches on fire, it explodes, meaning you have to run all the way back to a spawn point to do all that bullshit again. And to top it off, yes, there's more. This part ends with you trying to escape from this giant rock snake. The first part of the chase wasn't so bad, just time your jumps carefully. But the second part of it was ridiculous. You have to fly your way out of there and dodge enemies while the giant snake is hot on your ass. What makes this so stupid is that when you're hit, it knocks you into the giant snake, which kills you on contact. That means anything you touch while flying is a one-hit kill. I kid you not, I spent 20 minutes on this flying part alone, trying my hardest not to break my controller and kick my neighbor's cat. It was almost a deal breaker. Look, I prefer to finish games before I review them, just to get the whole experience. None of that half-assed quality here. But even with 23 hours of game time and 70% progression, I was close to putting the game down for good. But thank God I got past that part. You know, the more you progress, the harder the game gets. That makes sense. It was fun and challenging throughout the game. But at this point, it just became angry, throwing everything at me all at once, going from tough love to straight abuse.
But of course, don't let my little rant give off the wrong impression. I mean, this game is really good. Fantastic, actually. From the combat and exploration down to the cutscenes and voice acting, everything is top tier and high quality. And I highly recommend it to anyone who enjoys Metroidvania-style gameplay. Yeah, but besides the ancient complex, the only real issues I have with the game would be the lack of fast travel points, because when you're going from point A to point B, you have to do a whole bunch of running around. And because of how big the areas are, it can slow the pacing down by half. Another issue would be the dip in frame rate. Now I know I said that it happens occasionally, but when it does, it became very disorienting, especially when you immerse into the game. Hopefully they will have some updates and patches to help fix that altogether. So I give F.I.S.T, Forge, and Shadow Torch a 9 out of 10. Once we get those patches going through and circumvent these little issues, then yeah, it'll be a 10 out of 10. Anyway, I thank you guys so much for watching. Please check the game out if you're truly curious, because I guarantee you'll enjoy it. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Deuces.